It's bowl season. This one is the Gator Bowl. We've got the South Carolina Gamecocks versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'm going to give you the full matchup, breakdown, and score prediction right here on the SEC Recap Podcast. You're listening to the SEC Recap Podcast. If you're tuning in audio form on Google or Spotify or Apple, don't hit pause, don't hit stop, keep it right on rolling, but leave us a rating and review. It's completely free to you and takes about 20 seconds of your time. We appreciate it so much. If you're joining me here on YouTube, thank you. Huge thanks to you all for tuning in, hitting that like, subscribing to the channel. Love getting 5 to 10 likes on every video, 200 to 300 views on every video. I love the bump in engagement from subscribers, to you guys commenting on the video with your score predictions and your comments about what I think about these games. It's always fun. Even those of you who just don't have the nicest stuff to say, it doesn't matter. Love engaging and interacting with you anyways. That's what makes college football fun. Guys, you can find us anywhere you prefer to chug your podcast. We're on TikTok, here on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter as well, at SEC Recap, and hit that noti bell so you get notified every time one of these previews or a new episode drops. It's bowl season. All I've been doing is previewing games. I might as well just start calling myself the SEC Preview instead of the SEC Recap. But nevertheless, no more wasting time. I know what you're here for. You're here for the Gator Bowl. South Carolina, Notre Dame. This game is on December 30th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time in Jacksonville, Florida. We got the number 19 South Carolina Gamecocks getting the draw of the Gator Bowl versus number 21 Notre Dame. Both teams finished the regular season 8-4 with some ups and downs along the way. But most importantly, both of these teams finished in the top 20. Well, Notre Dame just outside, depending on which poll you're looking at. I use the CFP. But this sets up one of the best, in my opinion, non-New Year's Six bowl games of the year. The Gator Bowl, one of the oldest Division I bowl games, starting in 1945, 1946. And I think when most people think of iconic Gator Bowl moments, they probably think of the Woody Hayes incident from the 1978 Gator Bowl between Ohio State and Clemson, when a Tiger defender named Charlie Bauman intercepted a pass late in the game and ran it out of bounds at the Ohio State sideline where OSU head coach Woody Hayes was standing. Hayes struck the defender with his right forearm, almost like he was trying to clothesline the guy. And that kind of set off a little scrum there on the field. That interception sealed Clemson's 17-15 win over the Buckeyes. And Hayes was fired for the incident the next day before ever leaving Jacksonville. Now, South Carolina hasn't appeared in the Gator Bowl since 1987, and Notre Dame makes their first Gator Bowl appearance since 2003. Notre Dame has a 1-2 Gator Bowl record, while South Carolina is 0-4. The Gamecocks will be looking to notch their first dubby in this bowl series under second-year head coach Shane Beamer. Let's dive into the matchup, and I love starting with the offense. Really, really good offensive matchup here for these two teams. South Carolina comes in with the number 43 scoring offense, averaging 31.7 points per game on 381 total yards. They have the number 41 passing attack. Kind of a quiet number 41 too. A lot of people may not realize how maybe not the most consistent, but there have been games when they've put up yards. We're going to dig into that a little bit more here in just a moment. But 258 passing yards per game, 20 passing tutties, patties, as I sometimes call them. But the number 100 rushing attack, really kind of a disappointing run game when you consider that they had one of the best rushers in the SEC, talent-wise, if not in the FBS, in Marshawn Lloyd. But they averaged just 123 rushing yards per game, but 27 rushing tutties, that's ruddies on the year. Let's flip it over and look at Notre Dame. Number 49 in the country in terms of scoring offense, just 1 point less per game, 30.7. And where South Carolina excels in the passing game, Notre Dame struggles. Number 106 passing offense in the country, just 200 passing yards per game, 22 patties on the year. But they excel where South Carolina struggles in that run game, the number 42 rushing attack. Just another one of those things that makes this matchup intriguing to me. 182 rushing yards a game, 22 ruddies on the season, 382 total yards. So when you just look at the yardage here, 381 for South Carolina, 382 for Notre Dame, and then look at where the offensive strengths and weaknesses match up. South Carolina, number 41 in the pass. Notre Dame, number 42 in the rush. South Carolina, number 100 in the rush. Notre Dame, number 106 in the pass. South Carolina, -5 turnover margin, so they've turned the ball over more than their defense has gotten turnovers. Notre Dame also negative in turnover margin, -2, so not much better there. You never want to be negative. It's hard to say that being less negative is better. Less negative being more positive. It's not really the case. You're still turning the ball over more than your defense is getting turnovers. So statistically here, we'll get into personnel here a little bit later, but just statistically, I'm calling this advantage neutral. I'm not really giving either team the advantage here for all of the reasons listed above. Scoring, points per game is really close. You have really complementary passing and rushing attacks for either team. So calling that one a healthy scratch. Let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. Bigger difference here. By the way, if you're listening in audio form, I say this on every pod here on YouTube and on every pod, but for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time in audio form, we've got some nice infographics here on YouTube. So head on over to YouTube, or you can check out the episode description. Click the link. It'll take you to my articles page. Click on the link for this game, the Gator Bowl, and then you can browse these nice graphics with us. You can also screen cap them, share them. I do these for free for you guys always. All right, South Carolina, the number 78 scoring defense, 27.5 points per game on and allowing 392 total yards to opponents. Pretty solid passing attack, okay? Allowing just 200 passing yards per game. That makes them number 28 in the country, but number 192 rushing yards allowed. That puts them at number 112. So not a strong rushing defense, a much better passing defense. Let's look at Notre Dame now. Much more solid overall defensively. Number 32 in the country in scoring defense, allowing just 21.8 points per game. That is really good. That they're giving up just 327 total yards. They also have a really strong passing defense, a little bit better than South Carolina here. Number 21 in the country, allowing 190 passing yards per game to opponents, and a much better rush defense than South Carolina. Number 44 overall. That puts them just outside the top third. That's why I have that number colored in yellow there. Green for the top third, yellow for the middle third, red for the bottom third. They allow 137 rushing yards per game and have given up just 16 rushing tutties on the season. So really solid overall. I think the difference and the distinction is clear here. Advantage defensively goes to Notre Dame. All right, we'll get into personnel because I know probably a lot of you are screaming at me, but what about these people playing? Guys, we're about to talk about it right now. So injuries, opt-outs, and transfers. Let's look at South Carolina. So injuries first, wide receiver Josh Vann. He played 325 snaps this season, suffered a non-ACL related knee sprain. Uncertain as to his status, doubtful though, I believe. I could be wrong though. I'm recording this early. I have to record all of these early, so updated injury and more transfer information and opt-out information might occur. So if I have it wrong here, guys, I'm just working with the most up-to-date information that I have. For South Carolina, also opt-outs. Cornerback Cam Smith. He's the top cornerback, not just in South Carolina, but one of the top cornerbacks in the SEC. He's declared for the NFL draft, as he should. He's an opt-out for this game. That's really a hit. You know, he's a big part of that number 28 passing defense that South Carolina has had this season. So I think they'll be missing him. I don't know how much they'll be missing him against this Notre Dame passing attack, but still, you hate to be without one of your veteran defenders in a game like this. Also, defensive lineman Zach Pickens, he started in all 12 games. He's declared for the NFL draft. Now on to the transfers. Ones that everybody knows. Running back Marshawn Lloyd, underutilized probably in a lot of people's opinion, as well as Jaheim Bell. I don't know if you want to call him tight end, running back, whatever. He can be used in a lot of different ways. But he has hit the portal as well. And then Austin Stogner has hit the portal, as has defensive back RJ Roderick, who played 77 snaps this season. So a lot on the offensive side for South Carolina. Not sure what their running game is going to look like now. They still have some talented guys, but they don't have guys who've had a lot of production in the run game this season. So not having Marshawn Lloyd, not having Jaheim Bell, and then being, without an experienced tight end in Stogner, whether you agree with how they were all utilized or not. That's definitely a hit to your offense. All right, let's look at Notre Dame. As far as opt-outs, these are guys who've declared for the NFL draft. Tight end Michael Mayer, and defensive end Isaiah Foskey. Now, Mayer was the receiving yards and touchdowns leader for the Irish. So this one to me is huge. And whenever a tight end is the touchdown and receiving yards leader on your team, I automatically have a lot of questions about your passing offense anyway, or your offense in general. Not that it can't work. You see that work in some instances. But I think having offenses where tight ends are your receiving yards and touchdowns leader is more of an exception, not a rule. You could point to a few examples in the NFL with guys like Gronk and maybe Travis Kelce. But in college, you never really want that to be the case. I'm not going to get into all that, though. It's a hit for them. It's a big hit for their whatever semblance of a passing game Notre Dame has at this point. Okay, some transfers. Big ones, just like South Carolina. Quarterback Drew Pine. He was the starter. He has hit the portal. Defensive lineman Jacob Lacey. He's played 73 snaps. Then some depth players and non-impact players. Defensive end Osita Dinma Ekwonu played 8 snaps this year. Defensive back Jaden Bellamy has played 0 snaps. Feel like those guys are hitting the portal just to see what else is out there. Okay. Big one here. Key players for South Carolina. I waited to record this now until after this news came out. I was waiting as long as possible to record this one because I wanted to know, as we all did, is Spencer Rattler going to play? Is Juice Wells going to play? Got the news yesterday. Both of those guys are in for this bowl game. If you're a Gamecock, that's huge. You love that. They ended the season on such a high note. You got to be juiced that they're playing in this bowl game. Spencer Rattler, 66.6% completion rating. He has 2,780 passing yards on the season, 16 touchdowns. A lot of those touchdowns, I think a majority of those touchdowns came in the last 2 games of the season. Also, to go along with that, though, have to mention he's thrown 11 interceptions and he's been sacked 28 times. Okay, so I'm just throwing those stats in there so we get the full picture. A large number of those touchdowns came against Tennessee and Clemson. Add that to, though, the 11 interceptions, the 28 sacks on the year. But he's going to be throwing in this game to Juice Wells quietly. And I'm going to say quietly, been really one of the most under-talked about wide receivers in the league this year in the SEC. I think particularly because Jalen Hyatt at Tennessee just kind of eclipsed everybody. I mean, when you look at just the yardage numbers, Jalen Hyatt was the only wide receiver in the league this year to go over 1,000. He had over 1,200 yards. But right behind him was Juice Wells. 63 catches, 898 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's number 43 in the FBS, but number 2 in the SEC. Right behind him, Malik Neighbors at LSU. So I think if Jalen Hyatt just hadn't absolutely gone bananas this year, I think we would have heard a lot more about Juice Wells. Regardless, I think he might be one of the more NFL-ready receivers this year. So I'm not sure if he's declaring for the NFL draft yet. Maybe he has. Sorry if I don't have that up to date. But if he decides to go to the NFL, he might be one of the more complete receivers out there. You got to love that he's back if you're a Gamecock fan. All right. For Notre Dame, quarterback Tyler Buckner. Now, he started 2 games this year before he got hurt. He suffered a lower leg injury in the Marshall game after throwing his second interception. Missed 4 months. He's just now returning to action. So he's got a 56% completion rating on the season. He's 28 of 50 for 378 yards and 2 interceptions. So not a ton of production, but Pine's in the portal. It's Buckner's job. You kind of worry a little bit about the depth behind him. Hopefully that injury isn't going to come back to nag him in this game. Along with him, now that Michael Mayer's gone, receiving leader, he would have been a huge release valve. It's going to be running back Audric Estime. 142 carries, 825 yards, 11 touchdowns. Really, really productive. And if you remember, the strength of this Notre Dame offense is that run game. Number 42, 182 rushing yards a game, 22 rushing tutties. They are going to lean on him, I believe. So let's talk keys to the game. What do I believe this comes down to? Well, let me list you some different stats here. We could kind of piece all this together. Notre Dame has allowed they've averaged 29.7 points per game on offense against Power 5 opponents, while holding those Power 5 opponents to under 21 points. Think they've been a way better defense than a lot of people have given them credit or continue to give them credit. 20.2 points per game they have held Power 5 opponents. That includes playing Ohio State, playing USC. Now, those guys scored way over that average, but when you total up all 9 Power 5 opponents that they played, those are really good numbers. Almost 30 points per game on offense while holding to under 21 points. South Carolina, they have averaged 26.5 points per game on offense against Power 5 opponents while allowing Power 5 opponents to score an average of 31.7. So South Carolina not been as good against Power 5 opponents defensively. And that lines up with the statistics that we looked at, right? Now, both Notre Dame and South Carolina have played a common opponent, Clemson. Notre Dame allowed 281 total yards of offense against Clemson. South Carolina allowed 336 total yards of offense to Clemson. Notre Dame was better against the run, holding Clemson to 90 yards rushing, while South Carolina allowed 237 yards rushing. But South Carolina was better against the pass. They allowed just 99 passing yards, while Clemson allowed 191 passing yards. So that goes back to that defensive matchup. South Carolina, much better against the pass, though they don't have Cam Smith now, while Notre Dame much better against the run than South Carolina has been. Notre Dame defends well what South Carolina does best offensively. That's the pass. South Carolina does not defend well what Notre Dame does best, and that's run. I also think it's going to matter who is calling plays for South Carolina, and Shane Beamer has not really let on as to who that will be. They hired the new OC, Dowell Loggins, but I don't know how involved in the play calling or the scheme that he's going to be this quickly. And Shane Beamer has not given any clues as to who might be calling the plays. So rather than speculate on what would happen if this person was play calling, I'm just going to stay out of that altogether, and we'll see how that shakes out on the field. But defensively, Notre Dame ranks number 18 in team sacks, averaging almost 3 sacks per game, while South Carolina allows an average of 2.3 sacks per game. So that's better for Notre Dame defensively than it is for South Carolina offensively. And that's why I mentioned that Spencer Rattler has been sacked 28 times this season. Now, if you're a Gamecocks fan, something that you hang your hat on is like the Beamer ball or, special teams, like forcing crazy things to happen in special teams. So let's take a look at that. South Carolina tied for second in most blocked punts in the FBS at 5 on the year. South Carolina's blocked 5 punts on the year. But at number 1 for most blocked punts in the FBS is Notre Dame with 7. Okay, so let's look at kicks. South Carolina tied for 3rd in the FBS in most blocked kicks with 6. But Notre Dame is tied for number 1 with 7 blocked kicks. So both of these teams really good at blocking punts and blocking kicks. Watch out for something weird to happen in this game because I got a feeling it's gonna. So I think instead of relying on crazy special team stuff, you can't count on that, right? It's great if it happens, but you can't kind of factor that into your prediction or your score. I think it's going to come down to field positioning and who can do the most with that field positioning. A big part of that is penalties. Notre Dame ranks 15th in the country in fewest penalties. They're a pretty disciplined team, while South Carolina ranks 95. So South Carolina, more penalties. Often that translates into more penalty yards and less favorable field position or down and distance. All right, let's dive in and look at the odds. FPI has Notre Dame favored at a 67.4% chance to win versus South Carolina at a 32.6% chance to win. Now, FPI is a pretty good metric, but it's not everything when it comes to just picking an outright winner. You see it get busted all the time. So let's look at the spread. The spread favors Notre Dame at -2.5. So Vegas thinks this is a lot closer than ESPN's FPI. The money line agrees. They've got Notre Dame favored at -135, so still pretty close. The over-under is at 52 at the time I'm recording this, with team totals for Notre Dame at 26.2 and South Carolina at 25. Notre Dame is 6-6 against the spread. South Carolina is 7-5 against the spread. So I've got to give you a prediction, and I know half of you watching are probably going to be mad at whatever I pick, right? If you're here and you're a Notre Dame fan, by the way, welcome. Thanks for listening. Always enjoy having fans of the opposing teams in here to listen. And if you're South Carolina and I don't pick South Carolina, you're going to be pissed at me and you're going to let me know it. But here's what I think. I look for Audric Estime and Logan Diggs, also running back, to have successful day on the ground as Tyler Buckner and that Irish offense leans on them for the bulk of their production, with top receiver, tight end Mayer declaring for the NFL draft. But I said in my way too early bowl prediction that if Spencer Rattler plays in this game, I'll probably take South Carolina by a field goal. And if he doesn't play in this game, I'll probably take Notre Dame by a field goal. having Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells in this game will be huge for South Carolina, who will be looking to ride that momentum from the end of the season. So I'm picking Notre Dame 24, South Carolina 24. I think this one goes to overtime. I think we get some weird stuff happen, and then all bets are off. I have no idea. I think this game is going to be way better than anybody is expecting, and we get an overtime Gator Bowl matchup. Hell, give me the Gamecocks 27-24. They win by a field goal in overtime. Guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before you go, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. I'm trying to get 5 to 10 likes on every video. And if you've been here and you've watched a video and you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. I'm on the road to 100 subs. You guys make that happen, and I'm so grateful. Always leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your final prediction is. Give me a follow on Twitter at SEC Recap. Engage with me there. You can also find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you prefer to chug your podcast. Guys, be on the lookout for my next bowl game previews. We're going to have the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Music City Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the ReliaQuest Bowl, all coming at you. We got college football taking us into 2023. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Wherever you celebrate it joyously. I'll catch you on the next episode of the SEC Recap Podcast.